We told our son to forgive his brother for getting his wife pregnant, and he walked away from all of us. Now one son is dying. And the other won't even answer our calls. I'm holding a piece of paper that might as well be a death certificate. It arrived last night. No stamp, no return address, just sitting on my doorstep like someone wanted to make sure I knew they'd been here. Inside the envelope, one typed page, clinical and precise. A list of dates. A list of everything we lost over the last 7 years. At the bottom, handwritten in ink I recognized from 1,000 permission slips and birthday cards. You told me to forgive him. This is me forgiving you all. Signed, Ronan Hale. My eldest son. Upstairs, my wife Beatrice hasn't stopped crying since I showed it to her 3 hours ago. Down the hall, in what used to be our guest room, my younger son Silas is dying in a hospice bed we can't afford. Liver failure. The doctor says he has weeks, maybe days. His ex-wife won't bring their daughter around anymore because Iris doesn't remember who he is. And every single path we've tried to save him, every specialist, every treatment program, every financial option, leads back to one name. Ronan Hale. The son we told to get over it 7 years ago. I've read this list maybe 50 times since last night. Every entry is timestamped. Every loss cataloged like a project manager tracking deliverables. House transfer. Business collapse. Frozen accounts. Legal judgments. All of it connected to shell companies, subsidiaries, networks of firms I didn't even know existed. All of it. Him. We only figured it out 6 months ago. By then it was too late. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You want to know how this started? Fine. 7 years ago, we had a family dinner that destroyed everything. It was a Tuesday night, early October. My wife had made pot roast, Silas's favorite, though he barely touched it. He looked sick, wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. His older brother Ronan was supposed to come over after work, but Ronan's wife Celia wasn't with him. That should have been the first warning. Beatrice kept asking where Celia was. Ronan just said she wasn't feeling well. Then Silas started crying. My 26-year-old son, sitting at our dining room table, broke down like a kid who'd wrecked the car. Beatrice went into mom mode immediately, asking what was wrong, if he was in trouble. Celia's pregnant, he said. Beatrice's face lit up. Oh honey, that's wonder. It's mine. The room went silent. Not the kind of silence where you're processing information. The kind where reality just broke and everyone's waiting to see what's real anymore. I looked at Ronan. He was staring at his water glass like it was the most interesting thing in the world. You knew, I said. She told me this morning. His voice was flat. Calm. The kind of calm that should have terrified me. Silas was still crying. It's been going on for 8 months. We didn't mean, 8 months, Ronan repeated. Still not looking up. Beatrice went straight into crisis management. That's what she does, has been doing for 40 years of marriage. Fix it. Smooth it over. Make it make sense. These things happen, she said, though her voice was shaking. People make mistakes. You're both adults, you're both our sons, Mom, Ronan said quietly. Don't. But she didn't stop. Neither did I because Silas was the baby, the one who'd always needed help, always needed us to clean up his messes. And Ronan was. Ronan. Stable. Successful. The one who'd always landed on his feet. We told him family was forever. That blood mattered more than anything. That Celia had made her choice but Silas was his brother and brothers forgive each other because that's what family does. I'll never forget the question Ronan asked. What about Celia? I didn't even think. She made her choice. But your brothers. That's blood. That matters. Ronan stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. Like he was making sure he remembered this exact moment. He nodded once. Just once. Okay. Then he walked to the door. Stopped with his hand on the knob. Turned back and looked at me, really looked at me, for what I now realize was the last time. Thanks for clearing that up, Dad. The door closed behind him. Soft click. No slam, no drama. We never saw him again. I'm staring at that list now, sitting at the same dining room table where we told him to forgive the unforgivable. Beatrice is upstairs sobbing. Silas is down the hall dying. And somewhere in a city I'll never visit, in an office I'll never see, my eldest son built an empire on the ashes of everything we took from him. That okay wasn't agreement, it was a declaration of war. I thought he left broken. I was wrong. Ronan didn't leave to heal. He left to rebuild. And by the time I understood what he'd become, my younger son was dying in a bed I couldn't afford, in a house I didn't own, begging for help from a brother who'd spent 7 years making sure we'd have nowhere else to turn. The list in front of me starts at month 14. Initial loan restructuring. Which means the first 13 months aren't even on here. Like they didn't matter. Like Ronan was just waiting. I need to tell you about that first year. About how we convinced ourselves everything was fine. The morning after that dinner, I called Ronan's cell. Straight to voicemail. I figured he was angry, needed time to cool off. Left a message saying we should talk when he was ready. He never called back. By the end of the first week, his apartment was empty. Lease terminated, forwarding address listed as a P.O. box 3 states over. Beatrice panicked. Called his office, they said he'd resigned 2 days after our dinner. Effective immediately. His divorce attorney contacted us looking for information on asset division. Ronan had filed the day after he walked out of our house. Celia didn't contest a single thing. She signed whatever papers arrived, took whatever settlement he offered. The whole thing was finalized in 72 hours. I remember thinking, that's not normal. You don't dissolve an 8-year marriage in 3 days unless you had the papers ready before the conversation even happened. But Beatrice saw it differently. He's having a breakdown, she said. He's running away from the pain. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to believe my son was just hurt and needed space. Month 2, Silas and Celia decided to keep the baby. Got married at the courthouse, small ceremony, just us and Celia's sister. I remember standing there watching Silas put a ring on the woman who'd been wearing Ronan's ring 6 weeks earlier, and feeling like I was watching something fundamentally wrong. But Beatrice was crying happy tears, talking about fresh starts and forgiveness. So I smiled and took photos and told myself this was what healing looked like. We sent Ronan an invitation to the wedding. Thought maybe it would be an olive branch. It came back unopened, returned to sender stamped across the front. That's when Beatrice started saying he'd come back when he was ready. I was just relieved we didn't have to deal with the tension anymore. Iris was born in late spring. Beautiful baby girl, healthy, perfect. Celia's sister was in the delivery room. We waited outside. Silas came out crying, showing us photos on his phone. Beatrice immediately started talking about telling Ronan. He should know he's an uncle. He'd want to know. I didn't think he'd want to know anything about us anymore, but I hired a private investigator anyway. Cost me $800 for the guy to come back 2 weeks later and tell me Ronan Hale had effectively vanished. Social media deleted. No forwarding address beyond that P.O. box. No trace of employment. Only thing the PI found was an active real estate license registered in another state, but no associated business. Your son doesn't want to be found, the investigator said. People don't disappear this clean by accident. I paid him and never mentioned it to Beatrice. Month 9 is where the list starts making sense now, but back then it just seemed like bad luck. Silas got a call from his bank. Business loan for the furniture store was being restructured due to updated terms. He needed to come in and sign new papers. I don't remember agreeing to restructure anything, Silas said. The bank showed him documents with his signature. Official looking stuff, legal language he didn't understand. The new terms meant higher interest, accelerated payment schedule. He was confused, stressed. The store wasn't doing great, having a new baby meant he was distracted, making mistakes. I helped him cover the first payment. Pulled $3,000 from my retirement account. Told myself it was temporary, just until Silas got back on his feet. It felt like normal fatherson stuff. Helping out during a rough patch. Looking at this list now, I can see the date. See the company name buried in the fine print of those restructuring documents. A subsidiary of a subsidiary, but it traces back. It always traces back. Month 11, another contract issue. Another signature Silas didn't remember. Another payment we had to cover. I started getting this feeling in my gut. Like something was systematically wrong. But I couldn't put my finger on what. I tried calling Ronan's old number one more time. Got a recording saying the number was no longer in service. By the end of that first year, we'd stopped talking about Ronan entirely. He became the thing we didn't mention. The missing piece we'd learned to live without. Silas and Celia's marriage was already showing cracks. She worked long hours, he was struggling with the store, Iris was colicky and neither of them was sleeping. But they were functional. Stable enough. I told myself the worst was over. That we'd weather the storm and come out the other side. Sitting here now, staring at this list, I can see what I couldn't see then. That first year wasn't Ronan healing or hiding or falling apart. It was him laying groundwork. Every helpful financial advisor who approached us. Every contract Silas signed without fully reading. Every restructured deal that seemed legitimate. They weren't random. They were threads. And Ronan was holding all of them, waiting to pull. The second entry on Ronan's list reads, First vendor lawsuit, month 24. 2 years to the day after that dinner. I remember the date because it was Iris's second birthday. We were at Silas and Celia's apartment, small place, cramped, but they were managing. Iris was tearing into presents when the process server knocked on the door. Silas got sued for breach of contract by one of his suppliers. Some lumber company out of state. They claimed he'd ordered $40,000 worth of material and never paid. I never ordered from them, Silas kept saying. I don't even know this company. But the contract was right there. His signature. His business account listed as payment method. Official shipping receipts showing delivery to his store's address 6 months earlier. Silas swore up and down he'd never seen any of it. The lawyer we hired, cost me $12,000 I didn't have, said it didn't matter. The documentation was airtight. We settled for $32,000 just to make it go away. I took out a second mortgage on the house to cover it. Then the next lawsuit came. Different vendor, same story. Another signature Silas didn't remember, another contract he swore wasn't real. Then another. By the end of year 2, Silas's credit was destroyed. The furniture store closed its doors in November. Bank foreclosure. Everything liquidated to cover debts. Celia was working double shifts at the school just to keep the lights on. I'd see her at our house when she dropped off Iris, and she looked exhausted. Hollow. She stopped making eye contact with me. Silas moved back into our house that winter. 33 years old, failed business owner, sleeping in his childhood bedroom while his wife and daughter lived across town. That's when he started drinking. Year 3 is when it all fell apart. I went to refinance the house, needed to consolidate the debt, get some breathing room. The bank officer pulled up our account and got this confused look on her face. Mr. Hale, this property isn't registered under your name. I laughed. Actually laughed. I've owned this house for 30 years. She turned her monitor around to show me. Property records clear as day. Transferred ownership 18 months ago. New owner, RH Development Holdings LLC. That's impossible, I said. I never sold this house. But she showed me the documents. My signature on the transfer papers. Official notary seal. Everything legal and binding. I hired a lawyer to fight it. Cost another $8,000. He came back 3 weeks later looking uncomfortable. Mr. Hale, the transfer is completely legitimate. You signed these papers. Unless you're claiming fraud or forgery, there's no case. I'm claiming I never signed anything. He showed me the documents. And I remembered. 3 years ago. A financial advisor had approached me at a coffee shop. Professional looking guy, said he specialized in retirement planning for people my age. Talked about equity protection, legacy planning, protecting assets from liability. I'd signed some papers. He'd said it was just to set up a consultation, maybe look into a reverse mortgage option. I never heard from him again. Forgot about it entirely. Until that moment in the lawyer's office, staring at those signatures. What's RH Development Holdings? I asked. The lawyer pulled up business records. My hand started shaking before he finished reading. Real estate development firm. 6-state operation. Revenue in the hundreds of millions. CEO listed as R. Hale. Ronan Hale. I became obsessed after that. Spent months tracing every debt, every lawsuit, every contract that had destroyed Silas's business. They all connected. Not directly, Ronan was too smart for that. Subsidiaries of subsidiaries. Partner firms. Affiliate companies. A web so complex you'd never see the pattern unless you were looking for it. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. The helpful financial advisor. The legitimate contracts Silas signed. The lawsuits from vendors we'd never heard of. The bank restructuring. All of it led back to Ronan's network. My son hadn't just succeeded after leaving us. He'd become a titan. Built an empire while we thought he was off somewhere licking his wounds. And he'd used that empire to systematically dismantle everything we had. I tried every method I could think of to contact him. Emails to his corporate office, no response. I drove 6 hours to his headquarters, walked into the lobby. Security escorted me out before I made it past the front desk. I sent letters through my lawyer. They came back unopened. Beatrice wrote him a 10-page apology letter, handwritten, tears staining the pages. Mailed it certified delivery. It was returned with refused stamped across it. Silas spiraled fast in year 4. Couldn't find work, His credit was so destroyed no one would hire him for anything. Started drinking at 10 in the morning. Celia filed for separation, got full custody of Iris. One night he came into the living room where I was sitting, drunk, angry. "This is your fault," he said. "You chose him. You stood up for him at that dinner, and now he's doing this to me." "We chose you," I said. "That's why we're in this mess." He threw his glass at the wall. "You think he's punishing us? He's torturing us. And you can't even get him on the phone." I couldn't argue. Because Silas was right. Ronan wasn't just wealthy now. He was untouchable. Every legal avenue we tried hit a wall. Every attempt to contact him disappeared into the void. We weren't just broke. We were owned. The house we lived in belonged to him. The debts crushing Silas traced back to him. Even the legal channels we tried to use, I started noticing our lawyers would suddenly drop our cases, citing conflicts of interest. Conflicts that didn't exist until they researched who we were fighting. By year 4, I understood we weren't dealing with revenge anymore. We were dealing with complete restructuring. Ronan had made us dependent on a son who'd decided we didn't exist. And the worst part? We still thought we could fix it. Still thought if we just explained enough, apologized hard enough, he'd remember we were family. We had no idea what was coming next. Year 5, I did something desperate. I tracked down one of Ronan's business associates through LinkedIn. Guy named Preston Vance, listed as VP of Development at one of Ronan's subsidiary companies. I sent him a message. Then another. Then I showed up at his office. Security tried to stop me, but I talked fast. "Just 5 minutes. I'm Ronan Hale's father. I just need to talk to someone who knows him." Vance came down to the lobby. Looked annoyed but curious. We sat in the coffee shop next door. "Mr. Hale doesn't take family meetings," he said before I even finished my first sentence. "I understand he's angry. But we need help. His brother is in trouble. His brother is dying." I interrupted myself. "Change tactics. Tell him Silas is dying. Please." It was a lie. Silas was a mess, but he wasn't dying. Not yet. Vance said he'd pass the message along. I gave him my number, my email, everything. He called me back 3 days later. "I delivered your message," Vance said. "And?" "Mr. Hale said you always had a flair for drama." My stomach dropped. "What?" Those were his exact words. "He said to tell you he knows Silas isn't dying, and you should stop wasting people's time." The call ended. I sat there staring at my phone, and that's when I understood. Ronan wasn't just watching us. He knew everything. Every move we made, every desperate attempt to reach him. He'd probably known I'd contacted Vance before Vance even told him. The isolation wasn't distance. It was choice. He could reach us anytime he wanted. He just didn't want to. Late in year 5, my lie became truth. Silas collapsed during dinner. Just fell face first into his plate. Beatrice screamed. I called 911. At the hospital, the doctor pulled me aside. "Your son's liver is failing. Years of alcohol abuse. The damage is extensive. Can you fix it? He needs a transplant. Or at minimum, aggressive treatment to slow the progression. Without intervention, he has months. Then do it. Whatever it costs." The doctor looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Hale, your son's insurance was cancelled 8 months ago for non-payment. We can stabilize him now, but long-term care requires." "How much?" "Conservatively? $200,000 for treatment. If he needs a transplant, closer to $500,000. I felt the floor tilt under me. My retirement account had been frozen 6 months earlier, some legal judgment from one of Silas's creditors. The house couldn't be sold because it wasn't in my name. Beatrice's savings account had been drained on legal fees. We had $1,700 in checking. "There has to be programs," I said. "Financial assistance, payment plans, there are. But they all require either a cosigner with stable credit or proof of ability to pay. Mr. Hale, I'm sorry, but your family's financial situation is complicated." Complicated. That's what he called it. We were financially paralyzed. And my son was dying because of it. Year 6, I became obsessed with finding a way to pay for Silas's treatment. I researched every transplant program in the country. Every hospital, every charitable organization, every experimental treatment trial. One program kept coming up. Specialized Liver Treatment Center, incredible success rates, worked with uninsured patients. They had a fund for cases like Silas's, covering everything from treatment to transplant if needed. The catch, Required either a co-signature from a financially stable family member or direct payment from a benefactor willing to guarantee costs. I looked into who funded the program. RH Medical Holdings. I actually laughed when I saw it. Stood in my kitchen, Ronan's kitchen, and laughed until I couldn't breathe. He'd built the only door. And he was the only one with the key. I got Ronan's direct number from a business directory. Cost me $40 I didn't have. Called it. "You've reached Ronan Hale. Leave a message." His voice. First time I'd heard it in 6 years. Sounded older. Confident. Nothing like the quiet, devastated man who'd walked out of our house. I left a message. "Ronan, it's Dad. Silas is sick. Really sick. I know you don't want to talk to us, but he's dying. Please. Please call me back." Nothing. I called again the next day. And the next. Left dozens of messages. Then hundreds. Begging. Apologizing. Explaining what happened. Threatening legal action. Crying. Screaming. The voicemail box never got full. He must have been deleting them. But he never called back. One evening I found Beatrice in Ronan's old bedroom. We'd never changed it. Still had his high school baseball trophy on the shelf, his debate team medals, photos of him and his college friends. She was sitting on the bed, holding that trophy. "We destroyed him," she said quietly. "And now he's destroying us." I wanted to argue. Wanted to say Ronan was being cruel, vindictive, that he'd gone too far. But I couldn't. Because she was right. They moved Silas to hospice care 2 months ago. We couldn't afford the hospital anymore. He's in a bed down the hall from where I'm sitting now, barely conscious most of the time. Celia brought Iris to visit once. The girl is 7 now, beautiful, smart. She stood in the doorway staring at the machines, at the yellow-skinned man in the bed. "Who is he?" she asked. Celia started crying. They left and never came back. At night, when Silas is conscious, he whispers things. Usually doesn't make sense. But sometimes I hear him say sorry, Ronan over and over. I don't think he even knows where he is anymore. 3 weeks ago, I wrote a letter. Physical paper, pen and ink. Couldn't trust myself to type it without saying too much or too little. One sentence: "Your brother is dying. Please." Mailed it to Ronan's corporate headquarters. Certified delivery. Tracking said it was received. No response. Days passed. Then weeks. I'd given up. Accepted that Silas would die in that hospice bed, that Ronan would never acknowledge us again, that this was just how our story ended. Then last night, I came home and saw the envelope on the doorstep. Hand delivered. No postmark. No return address. I sat in my car for an hour before I could open it. Part of me hoped for a check, a medical authorization, some kind of mercy. The other part knew better. Ronan had spent 6 years engineering this exact moment, where we'd have nowhere to turn, no options left, and only then would he speak. Not with words. With a list. I broke the seal sitting in my driveway at 2 in the morning. Single sheet of paper. Typed. Professional formatting, like a quarterly report. At the top, asset reallocation timeline, Hale Family Holdings. Then the entries started. Month 14, initial loan restructuring, Silas Hale Furniture. Month 18, family home transfer to RH Development Holdings LLC. Month 24, first vendor lawsuit, Cascade Lumber Company. Month 28, secondary vendor lawsuit, Morrison Supply. Month 30, retirement account freeze, legal judgment. Month 36, business foreclosure, Silas Hale Furniture. Month 42, legal representation conflicts initiated. Month 48, RH Medical Holdings established. It went on. 14 entries total. Each one dated, cross-referenced, precise. I read it 50 times sitting in that car. Every move was there. Every loss we'd suffered, catalogued like items on a balance sheet. Clinical. Emotionless. Just data. But the dates told the real story. Month 14. That was barely a year after Ronan left. He'd already started restructuring Silas's loans while we thought he was off somewhere healing. Month 18. The house transfer. That financial advisor who'd approached me at the coffee shop. I'd signed those papers 2.5 years ago, thinking it was a consultation. Ronan had owned our home before Silas's business even collapsed. I remembered every signature now. The helpful lawyer who'd offered to review Silas's contracts for free. The business consultant who'd promised to help the store. The estate planner who'd said he could protect our retirement accounts from liability. All of them Ronan's people. All of it legal. We'd signed everything willingly. Smiled and thanked them for their help. Never suspected our own son was the one orchestrating it. But it was month 48 that made my hands start shaking. Month 48, RH Medical Holdings established 4 years ago. Ronan had founded that medical program, the only one that could save Silas, 4 years ago. Before Silas's liver started failing. Before the drinking got bad enough to cause permanent damage. Before any of us knew he'd need it. Ronan had built the solution years before we needed it. He'd predicted this. Knew Silas would drink himself to death. Knew we'd come begging for help. Knew we'd have nowhere else to turn. And he'd positioned himself as the only option years in advance. This wasn't reactive. It was prophetic. At the bottom of the page, below all the typed entries, was a single handwritten line. Ink, not printer. His handwriting, I'd know it anywhere. You told me to forgive him. This is me forgiving you all. I sat there staring at that sentence until the words stopped making sense. It didn't say I forgive you. It said this is me forgiving you. Present tense. Active. The destruction, the control, the suffering, that was the forgiveness. Not cruelty. Clarity. He was showing us exactly what we'd chosen when we told him to get over it. Showing us what we'd thrown away. Making us live in the world we'd created when we picked Silas over him. This wasn't revenge. It was education. I went inside. Showed Beatrice the letter. She read it in silence, sitting at the kitchen table in her bathrobe. Read it twice. Then set it down very carefully, like it might explode. He's not coming, is he? She said. I shook my head. He already came. This is him. She started crying. Not the loud, dramatic crying from earlier. Quiet. Defeated. What do we do? Nothing, I said. There's nothing left to do. Down the hall, Silas's monitors were beeping their steady rhythm. I walked in to check on him. Barely conscious. Skin yellow, eyes sunken. The hospice nurse had said it could be days now. Maybe hours. Celia had called earlier to say she wasn't coming back. Iris had nightmares after the last visit. The girl didn't need to watch a stranger die. Because that's what Silas was to his own daughter. A stranger. I stood there watching him breathe, shallow, labored, and thought about Ronan. Wondered where he was right now. What he was doing. If he thought about us at all, or if we were just line items on a spreadsheet, a project he'd completed. I pulled out my phone. Dialed his number one more time. You've reached Ronan Hale. Leave a message. You won, I said. We know it. You don't have to do this. He's dying, Ronan. Your brother is dying. You can save him. You're the only one who can save him. Please. I'm begging you. Not for me. For him. Please. I hung up. Sat down in the chair next to Silas's bed. The phone rang. My heart stopped. I looked at the screen, hands shaking, thinking, hoping. It was the hospice nurse's number. Mr. Hale? You should come to the room. His vitals are dropping. It's time. I'm already here, I said to the nurse. I'm in the room. I could hear her walking down the hall, footsteps quick. She appeared in the doorway, saw me sitting there, and nodded. His breathing's changed. Could be minutes, could be hours. But you should prepare. Beatrice appeared behind her, face pale. She'd heard. We took positions on either side of Silas's bed. His chest was rising and falling in irregular patterns. The machines were beeping slower. This was it. 20 minutes later, I heard the front door open. That'll be hospice supervisor, the nurse said. I called her when, but it wasn't the supervisor. Celia walked into the room. Behind her, holding her hand, was Iris. I stood up too fast, chair scraping. Celia. I didn't think. I know, she said quietly. She looked exhausted. Older than her 34 years. Can Iris wait in the living room? The nurse took Iris out. The girl went without protest, used to medical situations she shouldn't understand. Celia sat down in my chair. Stared at Silas for a long moment. I didn't come for him, she said finally. I came for you. I don't understand. She reached into her purse, pulled out a folder. Official-looking documents. Set them on the bedside table. I got a call yesterday. From a lawyer. Said he represented the RH Medical Holdings Foundation. My stomach dropped. He told me Silas's medical bills are paid. All of them. Retroactive to when he entered hospice care. I couldn't speak. And there's a trust fund. For Iris. Celia's voice cracked. Full ride to any college. Healthcare coverage for life. Housing stipend until she's 25. Beatrice made a sound. Almost a sob. It was established 4 years ago, Celia continued. Before Silas even got sick. Before we separated. The lawyer only contacted me now because. She looked at Silas. Because there's not much time left. Ronan, I whispered. Ronan, she confirmed. The room tilted. I grabbed the bed rail to steady myself. He didn't abandon her, I said. He protected her. From us, Beatrice said quietly. He protected her from us. Celia nodded. There was one condition in the trust documents. That none of you could ever know where the money came from. The lawyer only told me because he said Silas doesn't have long, and he thought I should know before. She wiped her eyes. Before it was too late, everything I thought I understood flipped inside out. Ronan hadn't withheld help. He'd provided it years ago. Before we even knew we'd need it. He'd made sure his niece, an innocent child who'd done nothing wrong, would be taken care of no matter what happened. He just made sure we'd never benefit from it. Made sure we'd feel every second of helplessness while the bills piled up, while Silas deteriorated, while we had nowhere to turn. The cruelty wasn't the silence. It was making us believe he'd abandoned everyone, when really he'd just abandoned us. And Iris would grow up knowing her uncle had saved her life without ever meeting her. Would know he'd cared when her own grandparents couldn't. Jesus Christ, I said. He's been 10 steps ahead this entire time. The doctor appeared in the doorway. Mr. Hale, we need to discuss next steps. The machines are keeping him stable, but his brain activity is minimal. We need your decision about life support. I looked at Silas. Really looked at him. Yellow skin stretched over bones. Machines breathing for him. No consciousness left, just biological functions. Keeping him alive wasn't for him. It was for us. So we didn't have to face what we'd done. Let him go, I said. Beatrice grabbed my arm. Warren. He's already gone, B. We're just making him suffer because we can't accept it. I signed the papers. They turned off the machines at 3:46 a.m. Silas stopped breathing at 4:12 a.m. Celia held one hand. Beatrice held the other. I stood at the foot of the bed, watching my younger son die, thinking about the one who wasn't there. The one who'd survived us. It's been 3 days since Silas died. Celia took Iris back home. Said she'd let me know about funeral arrangements. Her voice was kind but distant. The voice you use with acquaintances. Beatrice hasn't left our bedroom. Ronan's bedroom, technically. Everything in this house belongs to him. I'm sitting at the dining room table where this all started 7 years ago. The letter is in front of me. I've read it maybe 1,000 times. You told me to forgive him. This is me forgiving you all. I get it now. We told Ronan to forgive the unforgivable. To put family first. To choose blood over betrayal. And he did. He forgave Silas by making sure his daughter would be okay. Forgave Celia by releasing her from a marriage to a man who'd destroyed her first one. And he forgave us by showing us exactly what we'd thrown away. He didn't need us to suffer. He needed us to understand. Understand that the son we'd dismissed as stable and successful and expected to land on his feet was the only one who'd actually been worth keeping. That choosing the brother who'd betrayed him meant losing the one who'd have done anything for us. The destruction wasn't revenge. It was a lesson. And that envelope wasn't cruelty. It was a report card. We failed. I'm posting this because I need to say it somewhere. Need someone to know what we did. What it cost. Ronan Hale didn't walk away broken. He walked away and built an empire. Protected the innocent. Removed the guilty from his life with surgical precision. And when we begged him to save us, he sent a list. Not because he's heartless. Because he wanted us to see what we'd chosen when we told him family comes first. We taught him that blood matters most. He just decided we weren't his family anymore. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.